Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back to today's DAF. Bava Metzia, Samach Gimel. We are holding right on top of the Amud, the Tani Rabbi Yehuda. So back to our Mishnah. We had a story where Shimon approaches Reuven. Look, here's some money, 25 coins for a kur, a certain amount of chitim. Instead of taking delivery of the chitim, he decided to, just have it on credit, so to speak. And later on, he noticed that chitim have risen in price. He would like to take delivery of those chitim, which are now worth 30 silver coins. Reuben says to him, "Look, what do you have in mind?" Well, he says, "I want to sell the chitim for 30 and take the 30 coins and purchase with it wine." Says Reuben, "I'll make you an offer. Instead of taking the chitim and having to travel and go get wine, you know what? Going forward, I owe you 30 silver coins worth of wine." So there you go. Quick and easy exchange, and you have what you want. The Mishnah says that since Reuben does not have wine in his stock, he can't do this deal. And the question is why. So the Gemara endeavored to explain the Mishnah using various scenarios and explanations, but now comes a pshat which the Gemara discovered as a pshat which corresponds to a brisa, and that apparently, right, that is also pshat in the Mishnah as well. Okay, so this was Rava speaking. He says, "I'm going to explain our Mishnah just like the brisa of Rabbi Yehuda," and that fully explains the halacha in our Mishnah as well. Why is there a concern? Why can't we do this? Just because Reuben does not have wine to offer, why can't he just owe him the wine? Okay, so here comes the brisa. Tani Rabbi Yehuda. Suppose Reuben owes Shimon a money. Shimon then approaches Reuben standing on his granary, at his silo, filled with wheat. He says, "Look, please can I have my money? I'd like to use that money to purchase wheat." So Reuben says, "Skip all the steps. Let me just give you wheat directly." Look, I've a silo full of wheat for you, which I'm more than happy to give you in exchange for your loan. Look, we'll accept it upon ourselves. Basically, we're going to peg it at today's rate, and going forward, you have by me that amount of chitim corresponding to today's rate. Perfect. A while later, it's time to sell the chitim, and even if it went up in price, right? It's okay because technically it's Shimon's chitim that went up in price. He says, "Look, Amar Loi, Tainli, Chitin, Shani Roitze L'Moichron." Look, Shimon says to Reuben, "Look, my wheat went up in price. I'd like to profit on it. Please deliver my chitim. I'd like to take it and buy with it wine." Shani Roitze L'Moichron V'lich Ben Yayin. Okay? I'd like to make a wine investment. Amar Loi. So Reuben says, "Lo and behold, skip the bother. I have wine. I have wine for you. I'll just switch the credit from chitin to wine. I'm going to give you the wine corresponding to the value of your chitim, the current value, which is greater than the previous value. Say, go out, and apply it to me. I'm accepting it upon myself, in accordance with today's market rate. Perfect." Okay, so now the sort of ownership, the credit is transferred from chitim to wine. And Reuben, of course, is holding on to all this, right? A while later, wine shot up in price, and Shimon would like to sell that wine at a profit. And he tells Reuben, "Okay, can I have my wine?" I'd like to sell that wine and use it to purchase oil. I want to make an oil investment. So once again, Reuben responds kind-heartedly, "Sheman yeshli, actually, I also have a storeroom full of oil. I can give that to you. Say, will apply it based on today's rate. Is this okay or not? Ultimately, Shimon is getting more than he invested because he's getting that return, he's getting that profit due to the rising value of his commodities. Kulam, in all these cases, im yeshloi, if Reuben actually had all this, when he offered the chitim, he had chitim. When he offered the wine, he had wine. When he offered the shemen, he had shemen. Yeshloi, then it's mutter, because it's as though these materials have reverted to Shimon's ownership. It's his items that are now profiting and rising in value. But Eloi, suppose Reuben doesn't really have all this stuff. He's just offering it to him in an abstract fashion. I'm going to offer you wine. I owe you wine. I owe you oil. So in this case, if it goes up in value, it's usher, because he never really gave him any money. Right? This whole thing started. It was triggered by a loan. Reuben owed money to Shimon on account of a previous loan. Right? Now, let's just break it down step by step. If Shimon would have actually handed money to Reuben for his chitim, we learned this yesterday, then even if Reuben doesn't actually deliver the chitim to Shimon, it's considered a purchase. Right? Because even if Reuben doesn't even have chitim in his possession, but he can take that money and use it to buy chitim. It's accessible to him. So it's considered a purchase. So now when it rises in value later, we deem it as Shimon's fair and square profit. We don't look at it like a loan that's been repaid with interest. Likewise, even if he would not be handing him money, let's say there is a loan that's owed, there's credit due to a loan, such as now a case, and Shimon opted to instead of collecting the money, he opted to apply the credit, the loan, to some sort of material, some sort of commodity that Reuben has in his possession. That's also fine, because those, let's say, the chitim now turns into Shimon's chitim in exchange for that loan. But the problem here is that none of these conditions were met. A, Reuben never handed money to Shimon on account of these purchases. It was just some sort of abstract credit owed to Shimon. Reuben had owed Shimon money, so Shimon never actually handed money to Reuben right now on account of these purchases. So it was sort of a credit. And it was a credit being applied to some abstract commitment, because he never had those materials. So here we don't deem it a purchase. And then when the items go up in value, Reuben has no business giving it to Shimon, because we view it as ribbis, as though he took some sort of amount that was owing to Shimon and increased on it and gave him more. That's ribbis. So kulam, in all these cases, im yeshloi, if Reuben actually had these materials in his possession, so now the loan that he owed to Shimon had been applied to these items, and these items sort of revert to Shimon's ownership, then it's okay, it's mutar from lav. Otherwise it's not good. And Rashi actually says we're not gurus these lines, these words. So again, let's just summarize. So basically we had a Mishnah, we had a Brisa, and we're explaining the Mishnah based on the Brisa. So the Brisa was pretty clear, right? Shimon had lent money to Reuben. Now there's just a loan owing. There's no money being handed over, and Reuben would like to apply that loan as credit, right, on the chitim. Eventually it's transferred to the wine, transferred to the oil. It's no good. Unless Reuben actually had these materials in his possession, and it's as though Shimon is buying these items, and it's his thing, which rose in value, which could be transferred to the next material, etc., etc. Likewise, now in Mishnah. There were two parts to our story in the Mishnah. Initially, Shimon had actually paid for the chitim. It was a little bit of a different type of story. He approached Reuben to purchase chitim. He gave him the money for the chitim. That's fine, right? But then, when he came back to pick up the chitim, and then Reuben offered to switch the chitim for the yayin, which he didn't have yayin. So now there's no money changing hands. It's just a credit being transferred from chitim to wine. That's the problem. That's why you can't do it, because none of these conditions were met. Remember, you need at least one of two conditions to be met to make this work. Either I'm actually handing you money at the time when we establish this commitment, so it's considered like a purchase, even if you don't have the material, because you can take the money and buy it elsewhere. You, meaning the merchant, can take that money and buy it. So the material is accessible to you. It's as though you sold me something. That's one option. Or, right, so that happened initially when he bought the chitim, so it's fine. But when phase 2 came around, when he transferred the credit from the chitim to the wine, none of these conditions were met. He didn't hand the money now, it was just a credit. And likewise, the merchant didn't have that material. So that would also allow for it. If you would have the material, even if I'm not handing him money, that's also fine because he's granting me rights to that material. So though he's giving it to me, he's not buying that material. But none of these conditions were met because come phase 2, I wasn't handing him any money anymore. It was just abstract credit from my chitim. And 2, he didn't have wine in stock. Okay, so there are 3 concepts that we can derive from the brayse that we just mentioned, Rabbi Yeshia's brayse. Number 1, Shema Mina, we can learn from there. If there is money owed to a loan, right, you can apply that money owing, that credit, so to speak, onto Paris. Paris means any sort of material, grain or whatever. So Reuven can offer his Paris on account of that loan repayment, and it's considered legally perfectly fine. It belongs to Shimon now, and when it rises in price, it's Shimon's profit. But we don't say there's a concern because the loik Isar is a coin. We view it as though there was no coins changing hands. There was no money granted to Reuven on account of that sale. It's not considered a sale. We don't say that. We don't say the loik Isar habaliyadehu. We deem it a perfect transaction. Because, as we explained, as long as you meet one of those 2 criteria, either you're actually offering him money, or even if you're just offering him, you're sort of applying a credit, money that he owes you, you're applying that, you're transferring the loan to this material, it's also fine because there's material to speak of. You're actually giving him that material. It's like a purchase. You're giving him rights to that material. It's considered like a mekach or memkar. That's number 1. V'shmamina, second thing, hu diyeshlei, provided that the borrower, right, in this case Reuven, has that material on hand, which can now going forward be considered Shimon's. That's viewed like a transaction. Ushmamina isel Rabbi Yanai. Furthermore, we learn the halacha of Rabbi Yanai. The Amar Rabbi Yanai, malihin malid meyin. He says like this. Let's say, I gave you the money for the chitim, and then it was transferred to the wine, to the oil. And ultimately, I'm not going to pick up any material. I'm just going to get that money back. Right? I gave you $100 for a purchase of wheat, which then went up in price to $200. That $200 was transferred to wine, which went up in price to $300. That $300 was transferred to oil. At the end of the day, do we insist that you take delivery of oil? Or can I just ask you for the $400 of credit that I have by you? That's okay. Malihin, what difference does it make whether I'm getting back the actual material, malid main, or the value of the material? Because it's not so simple. There's really a machlekes about it. Some hold that if ultimately I get back money, it looks like ribbis, because I gave you 100, I'm getting back 400. It only works if I'm getting back actual commodity, actual oil. Then it looks like a purchase. But Rabbi Yanai disagrees. It doesn't matter. As long as we employed a legal system, a perfectly acceptable, non-ribbis transactional arrangement, that's fine. We don't care what you take delivery of, if it's the material or the money in exchange for that material, because it's your material, it's a purchase. The itmar, as we learned. One second, how do we see this from this price? Because here as well, he never took delivery of the wheat. It was transferred to wine, which was transferred to oil. It's all sort of value of the original. It's like getting paid for the original. Apparently, there's no issue of ribbis. The itmar, as we have learned, Rav Amar is not so simple. Oisin amon. Amon is this type of arrangement that we spoke about. Paying you now, based on today's market value, on condition that I will take delivery later on at a higher value. It's called Aimana. And it's fine, because what we said, it's like a transaction. Like I'm buying the rights to this material now. So going forward, it's my material that has increased in value. So Oisen Amana, you can only do it with Paris if ultimately I take delivery of the produce. Ve'ein Oisen Amana B'dam, but I can't take delivery of money. Because then it looks bad. It looks like I gave you X amount and I'm taking back Y. That is Rav Shita. Rav Yana disagrees. What difference does it make ultimately if I'm picking up the oil or the value of the oil? I mean, what's the difference? Rav Yana, Amar Malihain, what difference does it make if I'm taking delivery of the actual material, Malidmain, or the value of the material? Okay, Meisvei, here comes a kasha on Rav, who says that it only works if I take delivery of the actual material. Look at this brisa. Rav Aisha's brisa seems to contradict this point, right? Kulam and all these steps and all these arrangements in Miyeshloi, if Reuven has that material which he had designated for a Shimon, mutter, then you can proceed with the arrangement. Even though, ultimately, he's not giving him, right? He's not giving him the wheat. He's transferring the credit onto wine, which is considered payment for the wheat. That's Demayim. And go on, and on. He's going from the wine to the oil. So it's like he's getting paid for the wheat. He's not getting the wheat. According to Rav, it only works if you're getting the actual original material, not payment for, which amounts to a greater amount than you actually paid. That's a ribbis issue. Amar Rav Huna Rav, so Rav Huna Rav explained b'shem mashach. The reason why it's allowed in the brisa is because Shimon actually took possession of that wheat. He did Mashiach, took it into his possession, so it became his. And now when he switched it for wine, he's taking his wheat, switching it to wine, that's okay. And then he took Mashiach of the wine, and then he switched it to oil. Well, if that's what happened, why even discuss it? I mean, he actually purchased it. It's not a transfer of credit. There's no reason to discuss this. I mean, why would I think it's an issue? Oh, he didn't actually do a physical Mashiach. Reuven, when you offer him the wheat, and then subsequently the wine, he didn't actually physically give it to Shimon, which made it his, actual his. But he designated, a specified location. Look, I'm leaving it in that corner for you. That's called yichud. Yichud milsa, he says Rashi. That's enough. That's sufficient for it to be attributed to Shimon, and it's as though Shimon owns it. It looks like a legal transaction. It doesn't look like some sort of abstract, type of arrangement. Ushmuel Lamar Hamani Rabbi Yehuda. Shmuel comes and explains the halacha differently. He says, I'll explain to you why it's allowed. Right? The kasha was, according to Rav, if I'm not taking delivery of the original material, it's being transferred on and on and on, that's an issue of ribbis. So why the brisa do we allow it? It says Shmuel Hamani Rabbi Yehuda. The brisa is following a specific shita of Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, which allows for these things. The Amar Tzad Echad B'Ribbis Mutter. When you do some sort of transactional arrangement, Derech Mekech Memkar, even if there's a chance that the customer might gain on the deal, right, which would get us involved in a ribbis concern, but since it's not etched in stone, it's not a definite gain. There's a chance that you'll gain, a chance that you'll lose, right? Such as in our case. He had no clue whether or not the chitim will rise in value. He had no clue whether the wine or the oil will rise or dip in value, right? These things fluctuate. They're, volatile. So ultimately, if he had a good mazel and he gained on the deal, it's not considered ribbis. But again, we're not speaking of an outright loan. Of course it's ribbis. Here it's a mekach memka. It was a buying and selling type of situation. So even if ultimately he gained on the deal, it's called tzad echad. It's one side, meaning there is one side of the coin which gives him gain, the other side of the coin results in loss. Right? Basically, what we're saying is a chance of gain. And since it's within a transactional type of arrangement, there's no issue of ribbis. The whole idea is the Rabbanon, right? And Rabbanon did not apply restrictions in this case, as long as it's not an outright, profiteering arrangement. So likewise, in our story, the reason why it was allowed was because it wasn't clear from the outset that he's going to make money on the deal, and therefore there's no issue of ribbis. The Sani, where do we find Rabbi Yehuda's halacha? Very similar to our story. Shimon was owed a mana, right, $100 by Reuven. And Reuven offered his own field. Look, I'm selling you Shimon, I'm selling you, Shimon, my creditor, my field on condition. If I don't pay you back, this field is yours. Now, what happens in the interim? Who accesses the produce of the field between now and then? Right? Because he sort of, he set a deadline, right? If I don't pay you within a year, the field is yours. What about until the year is up? Who sort of owns the field? Who derives the produce? So if the seller, meaning the borrower, he's the one selling the field to the creditor, is the one that's taking the payers, that's okay, that's fine. However, if the buyer, meaning the creditor, who's going to take possession later on, is already currently accessing the payers, that's no good, because it can happen. It can very well happen that he won't ever resort to repossessing the field if the borrower pays up. So the extra payers that he had throughout the year is ribis. He's profiting for that on account of that loan. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, it's okay. Even if the malva, the lender, in this case we call him lekeach because he's purchasing, he's repossessing the field. Even if he took the payers all throughout the year, it's okay. You know why? So we'll see in a minute. Because really, it's not really outright ribis. It's like sort of a transactional deal. I'm sort of selling it to you on condition. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda turned to the Chacham and he said, I'll even prove my halach with a story. There was a fellow called Maisa B'Baisis ben Zainin. He did this very arrangement. On Rabbi Elazar ben Azari's instruction, and guess what? The lekeach was eating the pears. Apparently there's no concern. They told him, no, how could you prove from the No, actually, the facts that you're presenting are inaccurate. The moicher, the seller, meaning in this case the borrower, the former owner, was continuing with the pears, and not the other fellow. So Rabbi allows it, Chachamim do not. What's the halacha based on? What's the machlekes rooted in? Oh, my binayu, Amar Abaye. Exactly as we said. Tzad echad, when there's a chance, beribis, ika binayu. That's the machlekes. Rabbi says, since isn't really outright interest on account of a loan, it's sort of a transaction type of arrangement. I don't repay you, I'm selling you the field on account of the loan. So it's not really ribis d'oraisa, and since we're not sure that he will come to ribis, because remember, ribis will only take effect if, in fact, the fellow repays his loan and undoes his whole commitment, right, to sell the field, right? It's not definite he'll sell the field. It's only if he defaults on the loan. Who says a default? That's called tzad echad beribis. That's okay. Rabbi Amar, right? So tzad echad beribis ikbenai. Rabbi Amar ribis amanas lachs ikbenai. Rabbi disagrees. He says no. The only reason why Rabbi allowed it is on condition that the malva agrees to repay those payers if, in fact, the loan will not be defaulted on and the field will not revert to his ownership. But otherwise, it's a problem. Amar Rabba, let's go back to the discussion we had before regarding investing in futures. Amar Rabba, Hashad Amar Rabbi Yanai, Mali Hein Mali Dmein. Just as Rabbi Yanai tells us that if a fellow actually paid for some commodity and didn't take immediate possession of the commodity, and eventually it rose in price, he can ask back for the money. He doesn't have to actually take possession of the material, even if, whether it's hain, whether it's the actual material, or it's dmei hen, the money for the material, it's okay, because like we said, he purchased the material fair and square. It's his gain, it's his profit. Mali hain, mali dmei amrina, we apply this idea of it's irrelevant whether you're taking the actual item or the value of. So likewise, on the flip side, originally, when he offered this deal, when he paid for this commodity, it's okay, even if the merchant does not have the actual material in his possession. So as long as I'm giving you money, which gives you the ability to purchase that material on my behalf, go to the other supplier, right? So it's considered a legal transaction, a legal purchase, and even if later on it rises in price, it's my material that rose in price. Mali demain. It makes no difference whether you, the merchant, has demain, the exchange, the money over here. Demain means the value of my money, meaning the material that I'm expecting in exchange for my money. Whether you have it in stock or you don't have it in stock. Umali hein, whether you only have the money. Right? Meaning you're only accepting my money, you don't even have it in stock. Mali demain mali hein, nami amrina. That too works. You see, the lashon hein and demain is interchangeable. Hein means the original material, and demain means what's being exchanged for the original. So, and the second part of this phrase, it's sort of like a poetic phrase, mali demain mali hein, it means like this. I'm offering you money to purchase wheat. Whether you have the wheat itself, which in this case is called demain, in this context is called the exchange for my money. Demain means the value, the material offered in exchange for my money. Or that you don't even have that actual material on hand. You only have the money that I'm giving you, which allows you to go to your next door neighbor, to the other supplier, and purchase that produce for me. That's fine. Nami amrin, that's true. That's also good. Which allows me to go ahead and set a rate. This is what we call, the commodities, future commodities. Basically, I'm contracting for delivery of XYZ throughout the season, based on today's rate. This is called shar shabashuk, the established market rate. Even though you don't actually have it in your storeroom. And the reason is because, we keep on saying this point, because the fact is you can take that money, you the supplier can use that money to buy it elsewhere. It's accessible to you. It's within hand's reach. So it's considered a fait accompli. What about that price that we had a minute ago? I'm using the credit that the loan that you owe me and applying it to chitim, then transferring it to wine. It only works if you have the material on hand. Kulam and all these steps, if you have the material on hand, mutter, it's okay, mainly also, otherwise not. Apparently you have to actually have the material for it to be considered a proper transaction. Amar says, no, how can you compare the two things? See, over there we don't need any conditions, because A, he doesn't have the material, and B, he never actually gave any money for the material. He was just applying some abstract credit, a loan from a past loan. Of course it doesn't work. Remember, you need one of those two conditions to be met. Either I'm actually giving you money, that's okay, or even if not, but you have material on hand that you can commit to me on account of my loan. Here it's a purchase, I'm giving you money, that's okay. My time. Right, here comes an explanation. My time, why is this legal? Why do we say that it's acceptable? Take $100 and commit to delivering certain materials based on today's rate. Despite the fact you don't even have that material. How is it okay? Because the buyer tells us, look, you're not doing me any favors. Shkilo tivusach, take your favors, and toss it onto the thorns. Honestly, how are you benefiting me? Look, had I kept that money in my hands, I would have gone to the next supplier. I would have gone to Hine Vashili, local towns, Bazul, and purchased it at a low rate, at today's rate. So basically, you offer to supply it, gesundheit. You're not doing me favors, you're not giving me ribbas. And even eventually, if the items rise in price, it's my purchase, it's my material. Right? Because with this money, I can buy this material elsewhere. So if you're accepting upon yourself to provide it, fine. It's considered a purchase. If this justifies, right? We use this rationale to justify getting more than you paid for. So are you allowed to lend a pound of flour and receive the pound in exchange after the flour has gone up in value? We know that's not allowed. The Rabban is not allowed. Why not? Look, I can tell the fellow, look, you're not giving me any gain. I had the flour in my storeroom. I could have just held on to it and waited until it rose in price. You're not giving me back anything more than I gave you. If only I would have held on to it, I would have made that gain. You take your favors and throw it onto the thorns. You haven't really given me anything. The Amalei, I can tell the person, look, he can say to him, Chiti, the katchi bakalvoy, the wheat that I had, right? Right, it's a question. Chiti the katchi bakalvoy. If I would have left my chitim up in the alkavoy in my storeroom, it would have sprouted. It would have, gotten spoiled. Of course not. So be so kind as just to give me back the amount that I gave you. I gave you a saw. Return a saw. Amalei says, no, that's different. Hassam Alva over there, he actually lent him. He lent him the saw. So now it's too bad. If it rose in price, Rabbanan say it looks like ribbis, because it's an actual loan. Hachazvini here, he's purchasing. He's approaching a supplier and contracting with him for a seasonal delivery of wheat. It's a purchase, outright purchase, and therefore it's legal. Amalei, as long as I'm not really gaining anything from this weight, because I could have just gone to the next fellow and bought it outright. 1 second, he is gaining. By buying ahead of time from this fellow. He's saving the coin that you give to the safsira, to the middleman, the delivery man. Right? So the fact that the seller agreed to provide the chitim throughout the season without this middleman fee is a gain to the customer. So he's gaining. Amarle, so maybe there's an issue of ribbis because he's gaining on the deal and eventually it's going up in price, so he's getting more than he paid for. Amarle, the koyov le nami, we're speaking that he added that bonus, that fee. Rav Ashi Amar, no, zuzi de inshi. When a person has money on hand, that attracts all the merchants. You don't have to pay any fees. That generates the interest of the sarsers, of the middlemen, meaning they come running to him, and he wouldn't have to. They would waive the sarser fee. So ultimately, I didn't really gain on that. Rabbi Yehuda, they both explain like this. Maldi of Zuzi atar charifa. This is a similar case, not exactly the same, but similar. A person who offers money to a grain dealer, atar charifa. Until now, we spoke about being posek, committing based on shar shebashuk, the established market rate. But let's say it's still a sort of pre-season. The market rate has not yet been established. The early birds are buying, but it's not yet been, established. The market hasn't really begun. So this pre-season rate is called tara charifa. Charifa, like this rizim, or charifa means actually means cheap. So the cheap pre-season, rate, pre-opening rate. So when a person hands money to a dealer based on this rate, he has to be standing. He should be present at the granary, where the grain is, lamaya. What's the point of doing that? What do you have to be there for? Ila mikna, is it to make a kinyan on the material? Like honey, he's not even making a kinyan. Ila kabula mishapara. Is it so that the merchant is now committed to deliver the goods? And he's liable to mishapara. Mishapara is if a fellow goes back on his word, he gets that curse, right? So, is that why the buyer's presence going to prompt this, trigger this process? Commit the seller to the extent that he's liable to mishapara. So even if he's not there physically, nami mekabel mishapara. As soon as the buyer commits verbally, that's mishapara. So what's the point of being present? Mishapara says the Gemara, no, it's a trigger mishapara. And when the buyer actually shows up personally, that shows his seriousnse. And also commits the seller, otherwise not. Typically, when a person makes these, sort of pre-season deposits, typically gives it to 2-3 merchants to see which one is going to give him the best rate. So if he actually shows up in person to this specific supplier, samchadaite, that sort of clinches the deal. The seller sees that he's serious and he's committed as well. But otherwise, amarle, the seller can just tell him, look, I figured you just, sort of feeling me out. I figured ashkachas peri de shapiri mididi. You must have found better produce than mine, v'shaklas, and you purchased it. So therefore, personal presence is required to clinch the deal. Amar Rav Ashi, hashta da amras mishum mismachadaita. Now that you've just explained, the point of personal presence is to show seriousness. So even if he's not personally present at the farm, rather he found him, he bumped into him in the street. He says, look, I'm really committed. And he told him, look, I'm really committed. So then we say that the moicher is actually, taking the offer seriously, and if he backs out, there's a mishe para consequence. This is the formula. This is the sort of the rule when it comes to what constitutes ribis. Kol agar. Agar means sort of a rental fee. Literally means rental, but here it just means any sort of charge, any fee, not tarlei, which is being levied against a person because the fellow that gave him the money is waiting for it. So it's a wait fee. Literally a wait fee. That's called ribis. So any charge levied against a person on account of holding on to somebody else's money, that's considered ribis, it's asur. Person approaches a wax dealer. Right? Because dalid, and the going rate is 4 coins per block of wax. He says, sorry, dalad means there were 4 blocks of wax going for 1 coin. Okay? And the merchant says, look, you pay me now ahead of time? I'm going to strike a deal of a century. I'm going to give you 5 blocks per coin. Is that okay? So going rate is 4, but since he's paying him in advance, he's willing to lower the price. That's okay. Isnu gabe shari. If the merchant has access, he has this material in stock. It's just not accessible. It's behind a locked door, etc. Then that's fine. It's a legal purchase. He sold it to him for cheaper. He didn't charge him. He didn't, pay him because he sort of lent him the money ahead of time. It's an instant purchase. So he dropped the price. That's fine. But less nugabe, if he doesn't have access to this material, awesome. And you can't do this because since he doesn't have the material, he can't really be selling it. He's merely sort of taking the money ahead of time. He's like borrowing the money, and then when he gives him a good deal later, it's ribis. Well, pshita, obviously. It must be speaking the isli ashroi b'masa. Meaning, of course it's asa. Why even discuss? The answer is that the merchant has some credit. He also sort of contracted with his wholesaler, and he paid for it ahead of time. So perhaps I would say it works. Kivan the isli ashroi b'masa, since he has sort of credit by another supplier. So let's consider it as though he's just sort of transferring the material that he has at his supplier to this buyer in his shop. Since he has credit b'masa in town, we compare it to the halacha of Yavi B'ni. It's like he says, I have it right here, just my son is going to pick it up for us. Or look, it's locked, I got to get the key. Right, that's okay because it's accessible. It's within hand's reach. It's considered material that he's selling. So perhaps even if it's not by him, it's by the other fellow. But since he has a right to that material, he is being supplied by that material. Perhaps he can sort of just transfer that material to his buyer. No, he can't do that. Given the machasru gavai, since true, he has a claim on that material, but he didn't really actually collect. He didn't take delivery of it. It's not really in his possession. Command l'sundami, we treat it as though it doesn't exist. It's not accessible to him, and therefore he can't execute and sale on stuff that he doesn't have. Okay, we'll continue Be'ez Hashem with a bit more of ribis tomorrow. Bit of a complicated DAF. In summary, it's pretty simple. Basically, a purchase is okay, and even if the customer benefits and profit, that's okay. He purchased, it's his. But if he profits on account of a loan, that's not okay. Now, the chiddush that we learned today is that you can buy futures and you can invest on something that will go up in price, and it's legal. You can benefit from it, and it's perfectly fine, provided you meet one of two criteria, one of two conditions. Either you're actually giving him the money, that's considered a purchase. So even if the fellow doesn't have that material to give you right now, right? But like we said, he's not doing you any favors. You can take that money and buy it elsewhere. If you're using the current market rate, that's fine. You executed a purchase. Now, what does the fellow have to give you at the end of the day? Material, or even something in exchange for that material, like other material or money? That's a machlekes, because then perhaps it looks like you gave him X and you got back, you gave him $20, got back $50. That might look like a ribis related type of things. That's machlekes amoraim on that. But all agree, if I get back the original material that I bought, that's certainly fine, even if it's higher in value. On the other hand, even if I'm not actually handing you money, there is some money that you owe me, so I'm applying the credit of that loan to material, and if you have that material in stocks, once again, it constitutes a purchase, and even if it rises in value, it's my gain, and it's fine. And we discussed an aspect of Mishapara, and then another halacha of Rav Nachman, that dropping a price is fine, provided it's considered a legal purchase. All the best to you, and Atzlacha Rabbah.